This time on StandardBred,
Look.
first contact. With a life of racing planned, the horse-human relationship has to get off on the right foot. Weaning a foal is the start of a rest-of-life companionship. StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand StandardBred breeding and racing industries. Foals, cute, frolicking fast around the paddocks, driving their mothers to distraction, playing with their mates. Life's great and everyone should have one. But, like any youngster, you got to grow them up sometime. And for these cheeky mobsters at Nevele R Stud on the outskirts of Christchurch, it's time to start the learning process and take the first steps on a path to a life of racing.
That one in the corner on the left.
Out in the wild, what would happen?
They just wean themselves off slowly. Some, even as yearlings you'll see in the wild, still drinking off their mothers.
Big dreams and plans take some parenting of the humankind, since people will be friend and foe for most of the future. Jill Smolenski's ready-made for this role. A quiet achiever in racing, she's bred her own champion and raised a few for others along the way. Stud master for more years than you'd like to count at world-famous Woodland Stud, and now back home in Canterbury at Nevele R, where weaning is the task at hand.
We start at 4 months because we're doing so many here. We start with the oldest, of course, ones that are born in September, October, and just work through the list. So by the end of it, we are doing some that are 6 months old.
Separating mum from her babe can be traumatising for both, of course. And for the foal, it's a first real contact with humans to any meaningful, worrying degree. Given that we will be a rest-of-life companion and mentor, it's crucial this process goes well. Is this the crucial part of handling a horse?
I think it is. I think it plays a big part. If they've had a good start with the human contact, it does put them in a good stead. I know in the old days, like when they used to just tie them up and leave them, there was always that fight in them. There was always, because they never understood. I think the way we do it now, you're doing it in a way that the foals are understanding what we're actually asking of them. Because we have so many foals to do, this year we've got just over 100. Normally we do 130 and we do 8 a week. We have to get them done in a week, otherwise we'd still be going next season. It's the best way to get the best out of the foal in the shortest amount of time.
Up to this point, have they always been on milk?
Milk and good grass and maybe baleage. Some of them, if they've been lacking as a foal, or the mares have, they'll have been hard fed anyway. And it also makes the weaning process less stressful if they know how to eat. They can just come in and it's a comfort thing. They haven't got mum to drink off, so they'll eat their hard feed. And they tend to settle a lot quicker that way if they're good eaters.
So we've picked Joyful Homes for a reason, Jill?
Because she's a lovely quiet mare and just easier to deal with. Her foal is ready to wean, so what they're doing there is putting a sack around its neck, so when we do tie it up, there's not so much pressure on its neck, and we just put a rope through that.
So is she unusually quiet?
She is very quiet, very laid back mare. She's lovely. So on that first day, they'll be tied up beside their mothers to a point where they're okay with being tied up, and then we move the mare to the other side of the box, and then they're basically on their own because mum's out of eyesight.
So even having the mum
Yep.
on one side of a box as
That's
opposed
a big,
to them.
the comfort's gone. The direct comfort of standing beside mum is gone, and they're like, but you know, she's over there, I want mum. So that's where you'll get your reactions. Why can't I move? Why am I stuck to the wall? But what we want them to do is give to pressure. That's what we're teaching them. And that's the principle of leading them in everything as well. But some are quite severe, they'll really pull back, but he's just feeling his way really. Some of them will just hang back and lean on it, and that's when we'll go in and just push them forward and rub them, and they start to get the idea of what's expected of them.
He's a very sensible kid.
He is, isn't he?
Yet in the paddock, they don't stand that close to their mother all
No,
the
they
time,
don't,
So
but it's a less stressful situation. That's just normal for them. They graze the paddock, they run around, play with their mates. This is going into a whole alien situation for them.
No,
Because
it's okay.
they're a wild creature. See him now, he's actually scared of her, but she can get to him without getting in his space. So if we just rub them over, flip the string all around them, and to them it becomes a nice thing.
Maybe.
And often I've found in the past, if I have a foal I can't catch in the box, I just start flicking the string over its back and it'll just stop and come up to you, because it becomes a comfort thing. Just flick the string over and get them used to things going in the other eye.
Yep.
They work with two sides of their brain, the left side and the right side. So what you teach them on this side, you have to reteach them on the other side. That's because it hasn't learnt it on that side. I mean, this is unusually quiet.
Good boy, you're okay. It's not hurting. Good boy.
Generally they don't like being rubbed between the eyes
boy.
as well, because they can't see it.
Right.
So yeah, that's why they object a little to the stick, and we do a lot of that. She'll rub them in all those places with the stick, and then she'll move closer and start rubbing with her hand when she knows it's safe and he's accepted it. In the wild, the lions would rip their tendons out, and so it's a natural thing to want to protect their legs. So that's why they are a bit touchy. But again, he's just being so good.
Boy, come on. Come on.
To come forward is always a little bit harder. So he's just going to sit on that rope, and Anna's just going to have to wait, hold it out until he gives. She's not pulling, she's just there
Good boy.
holding, and he's worked it out.
Good boy. Good boy, yes. You're a smart cookie. Come on. Good boy.
See how he's licking his lips?
Yeah.
When they do that, they're actually taking in what they've learnt.
Oh, really?
So when you do a big thing like pick their legs up or teach them to lead, and give them time to stop and think about, they'll lick their lips and they're actually, it's like chewing over the thought. Oh, got it. And you'll find that next time you do it, they handle it a lot better. You do get those ones that don't want to try because they're just dull.
Right.
But to me, this is an intelligent foal.
Right.
So he's a thinker, and he's working it all out in a nice, calm way. So potentially he could be, a nice racehorse.
Okay, so when it comes to breaking in and all that, he's
Yeah,
going to be a bit similar.
Yeah.
He's a bit smart.
Yeah, he is a little bit.
Good boy.
And that's the big thing the first day, is getting a hand on them and rubbing it. Some will only rub down to their hocks and knees because they just won't let you go any further, but as long as you can rub them and rub their heads, and then we'll teach them just to lead a little bit around the box. Not too much pressure, just move their feet basically and give to the pressure.
Like to know more about racing or breeding standardbreds? Find the New Zealand Standardbred Breeders on Facebook or go to the Breeders website.
A rock and roll dance is 2 lengths clear.
A rock and roll dance, a multiple world record holder, the richest 2-year-old of his year, the winner of the Meadowlands Pace at 3.
A rock and roll dance, 148-1 in the Meadowlands Pace.
His first 2-year-olds are now here. He's now one of the leading first-season sires in North America and is now set to make his mark on the racetracks of New Zealand. Simply no other sire is better positioned for the future.
Woodland Stud, celebrating 25 years of world-class breeding. In the 2017 season, Pegasus Spur's daughter, Wilma's Mate, was a standout trotter in Australasia.
But it's Wilma's Mate past the 200-metre mark. A length and a half, Gentleman Sir, then Dark Horse, but Wilma's Mate, she's powering clear. 2 lengths on Gentleman Sir, and then Dark Horse. Wilma's Mate, though, it's been an up and down week for Davey Budd, but it ends on a high.
Pegasus Spur, standing at Woodland Stud.
Speed. You know it when you see it.
This horse is definitely the fastest. You know, he could just absolutely fly.
He's watching an undefeated US 2-year-old of the year who returned at 3 to win the Meadowlands Pace in world record time. He's watching is now siring outstanding foals. Book your mare today. He's watching, standing at Alabar.
Terra to Love is storming home. The 4-year-old Terra to Love, and Jimmy Curtin won it. Here's Terra to Love again. Terra to Love comes at them. Terra to Love won the cup. It is still Terra to Love. He's going to do it. It is the greatest cup win of all time. The Gold Cup of Ricky May has won the greatest race you will ever see.
StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand StandardBred breeding and racing industries. Of course, weanlings become yearlings and yearlings become fledglings, destined for sales rings or the racing stables. Generally, the process of raising young standardbreds through to the racing stage hasn't changed much, but the landscape is, and quickly. Even an operation with history and success on its side needs to be nimble.
Days have gone where we had 7 or 8 stallions there and we were having 1,200 mares bred to our stallions throughout the country. That's just a sheer follow-on effect from the less numbers of mares being bred.
It's generally conceded that all players are tightening the girth around breeding racehorses these days.
Look, we're still doing, pretty high numbers there. It's important to Canterbury and the South Island that we're offering that, and we'll continue to do that. We weaned about 110, I think, this year.
Do you find that you're breeding more Francos than you used to try and fill the holes? You're breeding more horses yourselves?
No, we're not. We went through an exercise some years ago where we actually decided to sell that it was more quality, not quantity. We've actually purchased or made some arrangements the last couple of seasons and getting some higher quality mares. So we're breeding from about 25, of which half, give or take, will be earmarked for the sales, mainly colts, and then those fillies will be retained here, put into syndicates or raced ourselves, and then with the hope that they'll do the business and come back into our broodmare band. At the same time, we'll cull that bottom end.
Like to know more about racing or breeding standardbreds? Find the New Zealand Standardbred Breeders on Facebook or go to the Breeders website. Nevele R Stud has long had the systems in place to give any youngster the best start in life. But not all kids are the same.
I mean, there are many ways of doing it. I know there's people that they'd have a paddock of mares and foals and they'll just take a mare away. Every few days, take a mare away until they're left with one mare and a paddock of foals.
And, generally speaking, does that work or does that not work?
Well, it does for them. Yeah, everyone's different. It's how you want to do it. You've still got to get those foals in and handle them. Every horse is different. You have to treat them differently. I mean, we have our set plan of what we do, but it's not set in stone that this is regimented. It's how the horse handles it.
You get one that'll give you probably 3 days of stink before finally the brain engages, and then they're like, oh, okay, life's not so bad. You're not trying to kill me, I'll just play the game. Yeah.
And sometimes you put them out in the paddock and bring them back in a couple of weeks later and they're amazingly great and you think, wow, but other times they've gone a little bit feral and you have to kind of go through it all again. Yeah.
Is there an outright wrong way to do it?
Well, that'd be, an opinion. Tying up a foal like we do and taking the mare away and leaving that foal tied up in the box to deal with being tied up. That to me is a big no-no.
And would that be...
What's it teaching the horse?
Would that be commonplace back in the day? Not
Absolutely.
And not so much now?
I hope not so much now. I think people have changed a little bit in their thinking on how to handle the horses. And of course the bloodstock's worth a lot of money. I don't think anyone can afford to do that and put a foal through that. I think, I don't know, some of the mentalities was, well, I'll beat them, I'll teach them to tie up, you know. But, you know, they're a wild animal. You imagine, like I said, they're a flight animal and they're now hooked to a wall. A lot of them do really fight and they'll rear up and throw themselves at the mesh and, you know, we have to go in and just hold them and rub them and just get them to work it out. But,
well, they lay down and just refuse to get up, so you've got to untie and start again. And
Yep.
This one's a little bit toey. You're all right, you're all right, you're all right. You're all right, love. Look up. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
Some that just cannot cope with being tied up, like Anna says, they may lay down and they just lie there and they won't get up. What we do then is we untie them and teach them to lead first.
Okay.
Get them to give to pressure by leading them first. So we'll just go in through the day and just start them teaching them to lead around the box, and then generally at the end of the day, because they've learnt to come forward, you can tie them up and they won't do that anymore.
Yeah, the next day they'll just be a whole new pony.
Generally they progress, don't they, Anna?
Yeah, little and often they seem to really just
they can
thrive
take it
on
all in, rather than, I know in the old days they used to tie them up for hours and hours on end, and I really don't think they really learnt anything.
Like that?
Like that, yeah, and just go away for the day.
And
That was old school.
So that they're pulling back all day and, you know, by the end of the day, hopefully they
Some will be lying on the box, on the bottom of the, you know, that's old. We've all progressed from that, and I think...
So you've done it yourself?
No, I've never done that ever. I couldn't, no.
So is the major differential between, say, someone who's got a couple of mares in the backyard with foals at a stud farm, is it generally just the time being able to be spent on the animal?
I think so, yeah. I know myself at home, I spend 2 weeks on mine at home, and then I teach mine to lead before I tie them up. But that's because I've got time, and if it takes me 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. We'll spend a lot of time just leading them around together with their mothers, and doing what we do with the other foals. We'll walk them in and out of things and through the crushes and get them seeing a whole lot of different things, and they're being handled by different people as well. And I do think they cope better. We've done it for the last 2 or 3 years, and the foals have been great to lead in with their mothers. You know, you see some people might take a mare and foal to the sales, they don't teach the foal to lead, and it's running around the sales and no one can do anything. I think if you do the basics now and just have it leading with its mother and can at least tie up, it sets it up for that situation and they're fine.
Speed. You know it when you see it.
This horse is definitely the fastest. You know, he could just absolutely fly.
He's watching an undefeated US 2-year-old of the year who returned to 3 to win the Meadowlands Pace in world record time. He's watching is now siring outstanding foals. Book your mare today. He's watching, standing at Alabar.
Always be fast, always be tough, always be great, always be Mickey. Alabar and Nevele R are proud to introduce Always Be Mickey, the fastest horse of all time. From the Western Ideal sire line and out of the reigning US Broodmare of the Year, who was by Arts Place. From his first start at the Meadowlands as a 2-year-old through his 30-win career, Always Be Mickey's deeds on the racetrack make him one of the greatest racehorses of all time. Always Be Mickey.
American Ideal returns again to New Zealand's leading standardbred stud Woodlands for the 2017 season. Here is his champion New Zealand daughter, the Orange Agent, securing another Group 1 victory.
On the outside, Piccadilly Princess, the lone danger if there's one. The Orange Agent, she's pulling out plenty. On the outside, Piccadilly Princess, or put in a late drive. No, she's a special agent. She's the Orange Agent.
American Ideal, standing at Woodlands Stud.
Terra to Love is storming home. The 4-year-old Terra to Love and Jimmy Curtin won it. Here's Terra to Love again. Terra to Love comes at them. Terra to Love won the cup. It is still Terra to Love. He's going to do it. It is the greatest cup win of all time. The Gold Cup of Ricky May have won the greatest race you will ever see.
StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand standardbred breeding and racing industries. Top-end Nevele R is high in demand. Colts like this are what the Franco brand aspires to produce.
We averaged 70-odd thousand this year. And saying that, there's a huge array of prices, but we are sellers.
180 here, quick now. For 180, I'll give you a 5 you like. At 180.
Last year we averaged 55,000. I think that's a reflection on the change in recipe that we were sending some of our more quality mares that had performed to commercial stallions. Yes, you're paying more money up front, but you're reaping the reward, and it's been proved the last couple of seasons in the sales ring.
190, last call at 190,000.
It's getting close to 50 years since the foundations were laid to establish what has grown into a world-renowned standardbred nursery on what used to be the outskirts of Christchurch.
There's some prime real estate just on the fringes of Christchurch that seems to be in demand these days, and we've seen Sprayton Lodge, where it used to be, disappear.
Yes, you're dead right. There's 800 or 900 residential sections being developed there over a 10, 12-year plan with a commercial environment as well.
Where do you see Nevele R Stud, say, in 2027?
The Christchurch housing market is certainly coming out our way. Prebbleton is developed just down the road from the stud. You know, let's hope it's still operating. I think it will be. Perhaps not at 450 acres, but we'll react to that given the state of the industry and where the market is.
Investments in new stallions and partnerships with old rivals are some encouragement for standardbred breeders of harness racing's coming generation. To join the harness racing and breeding conversation, you can make contact with your standardbred breeders associations across New Zealand.
This season we've started the putting them out on the weekend. We used to just tie them up for the first time on the Friday and just wean them on the Monday. But we found the extra 2 days, they're just so relaxed and easier to do. So we just, each year we might change a few little things just to make it easier on the foal. So this lot, yeah, have been out in the paddock for the weekend, weaned on Friday. So now they come in, they're pretty much over mum. Some of them will still be a little bit antsy. So they'll just get rubbed over and then we start trying to pick their legs up.
They generally hate it, but once you get the front legs, they just give you the back, usually. Some will put in a kick. They just get very antsy about it all. But once they realise you're not there to hurt them, they generally just give in and let you do what you need to do. And they come to it pretty good. Like this one, its brain's just very busy, it's moving all the time and just having to think about things. Just figuring what it can and can't do.
So he's having a chew now.
He wanted to try and get away from me, but I didn't let it, so he's gone, oh, okay. And just...
He may try it again, but he's processing it.
So just as an overview, what are you looking for in a weanling?
Well, I think type has to be one important factor. But yeah, just that willingness to learn, I think, is probably the big thing. You might even get one that's really stubborn for 3 days. It won't lead, it wants to kick you. But if it turns that corner and takes it all in, I mean, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see something that just doesn't try at all. And I think, yeah, those horses that are just wanting to learn and wanting to please you, they're the ones that you sort of look for and you want to follow and see if they carry on into the future.
If one weans well,
yep.
Is it general that it will, you know...
It will do, generally it will do something. I mean, it still has to have the heart and desire to win a race, yep. But generally they will go on and they will do something. And I have had Dennis and I weaned One Dream Changeover, and both those two were outstanding to wean. They just clicked onto everything. Everything was a breeze, and they did that all the way through their life. They were both fantastic to handle, great race horses. It just led on. You'll always have a feeling about a foal, and hey, you could be wrong, but generally the ones that deal with the pressure as a foal can go on and deal with things later on in life.
So the ones that are spinning out and you've got to send away from up and bring back,
yeah.
Does that, I mean, I suppose you win with them in the end.
Well, you do, and it takes a lot longer, but you'll find too with the breaking in process and that there'll be little hitches along the way because they don't grasp it as quickly.
So they'll always need that
just,
bit of extra work and
extra,
time.
Yeah.
What are the immediate requirements of a weanling once it's gone through this pretty stressful little week or fortnight?
It's definitely got to know how to eat properly and feed it properly. I mean, the days are gone where we used to just chuck them out on the hill and give them a bit of hay. I mean, today the yearling sales are such a big factor with our industry that horses have to be fed properly. So we have them in small mobs of 10 to 15. They got lots of grass, they get hard fed every day, and they get as much baleage that they can eat. And I think that's important. Let them get out and just be horses. That's a really, really important thing. We don't cover ours until they need to go to the sales. We don't bring them in and box them every night. That is really unnatural for a horse. I think it's really important to get out and be horses. And you must keep your hoof trimming, regular hoof trimming, and also like your worming, your vaccinations. It's really important just to keep that up, have it all set up, and do it at regular intervals, and you've given that horse the best start possible.
Next time on StandardBred. A new breeding season equals big spending and budgeting the outflow of funds.
It is hard work trying to get a stallion down New Zealand, down the bottom, to be fair.
There are some value options when considering stallions.
Why don't I offer breeders the opportunity of paying when they qualify or sold?
But are they viable in the long run?
Washington has left 26 Group 1 winners, which in my wildest dreams I didn't think would happen.